Lauren, what are you doing?
Just cleaning up my bowling trophy. The theme for this week is all about belonging in God's family. On Sunday, we took part in the Lord's Supper in the sanctuary as part of World Communion Day, a special Sunday in the church calendar where believers all over the world celebrate communion together. As Colin pointed out on Sunday, communion sounds a whole lot like community. And this isn't a coincidence. Just like community means a group of people with similar interests or goals or beliefs, communion is all about all of us believers coming together and being in community with Jesus.
So does this mean even my friends who go to different churches are part of the same really big community?
That's right, we're all part of God's family.
Even if they live in a different country, like my friend Zaga from Germany?
Even if they live in a different time zone, we're all part of God's big extended family. It's kind of like World Communion Day is a big cross-continent family dinner.
That's a whole lot of bread and grape juice.
It sure is, Ziggy. Things might look a little bit different, though, at communion celebrations around the world.
At St. Andrew's, we take communion with a tiny piece of bread and a little glass of grape juice. But other churches might use a wafer or a fresh-baked bun. Some churches have even started serving gluten-free bread. Many churches have switched to serving grape juice, but others have continued to serve wine or give their members the option to choose. In some churches, the congregation lines up to dip their bread in the cup of wine. Others stay seated through the entire event. And in some congregations, everyone shares the wine from the same special cup.
Cool. Hey, I have an idea. Do you think we could Skype my friend Zaga from Germany and see how his church celebrated communion?
That's a great idea, Ziggy.
Hello? Hello?
Zaga, hello. Hello. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm so great. We just finished up our 201st Oktoberfest celebration this weekend.
That's so cool. Look, Zaga, I'm calling because I'm wondering how your church celebrated World Communion Day.
Oh, it was super. The priest read the story of the Last Supper from the Bible. Then we all gathered around the altar, and the minister served us communion wafers, and we drank wine from the same cup. Then we said our prayer.
Oh, that's neat. Well, listen, Zaga, I gotta get back to our lesson, but it was so great to hear from you.
Auf Wiedersehen, mein Freund.
See, Ziggy, there are lots of different ways that people around the world celebrate communion, but what's the same across cultures and countries is our faith and relationship with Jesus Christ, us remembering his sacrifice and his love for us. And with that, let's jump into our story for this week. Our story for this week is from the book of Mark, chapter 10, verses 13 to 16. He writes, "People were bringing children to Jesus so that he would bless them, but the disciples scolded them. Then Jesus saw them. He grew indignant and said to them, 'Allow the children to come to me. Don't forbid them, because God's kingdom belongs to people like these children. I assure you that whoever doesn't welcome God's kingdom like a child will never enter it.' Then he hugged the children and blessed them."
Wait a minute. So the disciples didn't like kids?
It's not that they didn't like kids, but it's that they thought that the kids would be a nuisance. You see, Jesus had a lot of important things to say and a lot of important people to talk to. And the disciples didn't want the children to be disruptive or noisy. So they were really trying to take care of the situation.
So they tried to kick them out?
Kind of. How do you think that made the kids and the parents feel?
I don't really have to think about it. One time, I was out for dinner with my parents, and we were asked to leave because my little sister was making a lot of noise. We were pretty embarrassed, and we've never felt welcome to go back.
That's probably exactly how the kids and the parents felt in this story.
But Jesus didn't kick them out?
No way. He did the exact opposite. Here in verse 14, it says that Jesus became indignant. That's probably a new word for you. Indignant means when we see something that is unjust or unfair and it upsets us. So when Jesus was indignant, it means that the situation was upsetting because it was unfair to the children. See, Jesus wanted to include everyone in his blessings and teachings. But remember a couple of weeks ago when I said kids back then didn't have very much value? Well, that's why the disciples didn't think that they should be a part of the group. But Jesus says the opposite. Jesus says, welcome the children, come and sit with me. Children and everybody have a place in my kingdom. In fact, Jesus says that sometimes us adults should be more like kids. He wants us to see value in one another no matter how old we are. Kids, a lot of your day is spent learning from adults, but sometimes you have a lot to teach us.
So today really was all about inclusion and belonging. We talked about how everyone belongs in God's family at the communion table, and then how kids belong to God's family too.
That's right, I think you've got it. And with that, let's head to our Bible memory verse.
Jesus wants to make it clear to everyone that kids are important and valued in God's kingdom. He says, allow the children to come to me. Don't forbid them, because God's kingdom belongs to people like these children. Mark 10:14. Now I'll repeat the verse and take some words away. Follow along with me and we'll memorize the verse together. Allow the children to come to me. Don't forbid them, because God's kingdom belongs to people like these children. Mark 10:14. Allow the children to come to me. Don't forbid them, because God's kingdom belongs to people like these children. Mark 10:14. Allow the children to come to me. Don't forbid them, because God's kingdom belongs to people like these children. Mark 10:14. Allow the children to come to me. Don't forbid them, because God's kingdom belongs to people like these children. Mark 10:14.
Here comes your challenge for this week. Challenge 1. This week, we talked about how back in Bible times, kids were often considered low in value or even disadvantaged. This week, I want you to reread the story and memorize the Bible memory verse and think about a group in today's society that we might call undervalued or disadvantaged. Reread the story and think about how it might be retold in today's terms. Challenge number 2. Remember, in today's story, we heard about how the disciples wanted the children to leave, but Jesus stood up for them and said, no, that's not fair. I want you to reread the story this week with your parents and then ask them about a time that they had to stand up and be an advocate for you, maybe in a medical situation or at school or another environment. Ask them about a mama or papa bear moment.